vanished.
On the night that she disappeared, she was in the company of a couple females and a male. And the couple females identify the male subject.
Finally, they have a name. Vicky was with 31-year-old Alfred Gaynor. Gaynor is well known in the community.
My Aunt Rosemary knew Gaynor. I did see them together one day walking down the street, and my mother knew some of the Gaynor family.
His family lived like on the next street, you know, so the name Gaynor was like a name that our family knew.
You know why we called you down here? No.
Mr. Gaynor was first brought in for questioning. He was brought in not as a suspect, but as a person who was last seen with one of the victims.
Where were you on February 2nd? Remember?
He admits he was with Vicky that night, but they separated when she said she wanted to go pawn some earrings.
Mr. Gaynor informed us that he was dropped off at a certain street in Springfield, and he gave directions where to go sell her jewelry in Holyoke, and she drove off by herself. The interview lasted 7 hours.
He swears he did nothing to harm Vicky or any of the others, and they have no evidence or testimony against him.
A DNA sample was taken from him, voluntarily submitted.
Back then, it required taking someone to the hospital for them to draw 4 vials of blood.
Will it match the fluid from the bodies and the blood from Vicky's car?
DNA was in its infancy stages, so it took a great deal of time. Too much time, actually.
Until they get results, they have to release him.
We did not have probable cause. You know, we were very cautious.
You do not want to mess up a case like this, to let a guy out on technicality. You don't want a judge come in and say, you know what, you made a mistake. Do you want to be the department that messes something like that? We were super careful.
Mr. Gaynor was put under surveillance. It was a hidden surveillance. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Everywhere he went, the officers went. There was no time Mr. Gaynor could have slipped away.
They hope he'll lead them to Vicky.
As each day went by, the concern was that she wasn't alive. So there was some concern that we were going to find another dead female somewhere. She was missing for approximately 3 weeks when she was located in the south end, downtown Springfield area. There was an inspection going on at the building, and the person conducting the exterior inspection located her kind of tucked behind some small shrubbery. And she was frozen to the core.
Her death was consistent with the other homicides. Manual strangulation.
Law enforcement was very clear that they felt that she had been slain elsewhere and that her body was dumped outside.
And she was sexually assaulted. An important clue. She's not wearing the earrings she wore the night she vanished. The ones Gaynor said she was going to pawn. Then surveillance units following Alfred Gaynor spot him visiting a pawn shop.
Our detectives went out and discovered at the pawn shops that he had pawned our last victim's earrings.
Investigators think they finally have the proof. He is their guy. As for the FBI profile,
The killer was likely an African-American man.
He's the same race, fairly young, 30, give or take, a few years. He was in his early 30s. He lived with his parents. He did a type of work that was precise and exacting. Auto body and machining were his trades, and certainly machining has a precision quality to it.
But in this story, the danger is far from over.
The young man pounced on Alfred Gaynor and pummeled him with punches.
He just jumped up. He couldn't control himself.
5 women die at the hands of a serial killer before police get the evidence they need to arrest suspect Alfred Gaynor.
It was amazing that if he didn't pawn those earrings, how many more ladies would have died?
My family, we were watching the news every day, all day, to see if they would ever catch someone. Finally, they had said that they had apprehended Alfred Gaynor.
The Gaynor I knew or came across from time to time, I never would have imagined. It just didn't make sense to me. I was surprised, I was shocked, I was hurt, I was confused.
It was really a shock to his family and to people who knew him, his neighbors.
Those are the people that were surprised. What? That was Alfred was doing that?
Investigators still have work to do.
Even though there was an arrest, and even though the chief and the district attorney thought they had the suspect, to link it all together and be 100% sure, you just never know.
We continue to investigate that up until the trial.
His palm prints were recovered at 2 crime scenes. His fingerprints were recovered at 1 or 2 crime scenes. And his blood was recovered at the Rosemary Downs homicide.
The final nail in Gaynor's coffin. The DNA test results.
The DNA from Mr. Gaynor matched the DNA from the biological evidence from a number of crime scenes.
There was no doubt in our minds when the DNA finally came back that Alfred Gaynor was responsible and was the killer.
I was happy and I was sad. Upset that someone that was my aunt's friend took her life.
When Gaynor is arraigned, mayhem.
My aunt's oldest son, he couldn't control himself. He just jumped up.
And then Gaynor's 2 relatives, a sister and a nephew, came running from the galley and joined the fray.
The trial is an emotional one.
Oh, God. Oh. I made sure that when he was in the courtroom, that he would look right in front of me, that he would look in my face. He actually admitted killing my sister to me, face to face.
I was terrified because I could put a face to the man that had killed my aunt.
Prosecutors describe how Gaynor sought out women he knew who would be comfortable with him.
He targeted women that were by themselves.
so he could take advantage.
He struck with intense fury. They didn't stand a chance. Then he'd disappear into the community, who thought they knew him.
On indictment number 98-965, you, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree.
Alfred Gaynor is found guilty on all counts.
The first four that the jury convicted him on were murder in the first degree and aggravated rape. He received life sentences for each, with a 25-year on and after for each aggravated rape.
Our officers could breathe. Our community members could breathe. The intense feeling of fear that ran through our community like a chill was immediately relieved.
But it's still not over. Turns out he's responsible for even more murders.
Years later, he confessed to 5 others, and during one of those, he left an 18-month-old baby at the crime scene to slowly die in the same apartment that her mother was killed.
The neighbors are calling and the landlord saying, listen, there's a problem here. We haven't heard from the woman here and she has a baby. When we got there, the baby died.
He was indicted for a few more murders, and he's confessed to and been held responsible in courts for 8 or 9 murders at this point. And as far as I'm concerned, he still could be responsible for a couple of more.
In this business, a double murder is very rare. Triple murder, very rare. If somebody at 7, 8, 9, 10, unheard of. Yeah, he's where he should be.
Now he'll never harm anyone outside the prison system again.
He's never going to get out. There's no death penalty in Massachusetts, so he couldn't get any more.
He gets to live. My aunt doesn't. I'm one against the death penalty. But I think I would have made an exception this time.
So I believe in the Bible, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. He took their lives, he shouldn't be able to be alive. That's my honest opinion.
Rosemary missed out on her children's lives, her granddaughter's life, the births of her great nieces and nephews, all the good times that we used to have, was stolen away from us. Things weren't the same after. That to this day is still hard.
Oh, Loretta was a beautiful person. She had so much life in her, and I just wish she could have had that chance to live it.
And we'll always love you, Aunt Loretta. You'll always be a part of us.